similar format to last week where we looked at the different SKUs and we looked at the different flavours of the hub. If you've got any comments or questions, put them in the comments box, we'll pick them up. So moving on from last week, we now know which kit we want to install. The training board I've got behind me is wired as a traditional 2-channel system, so there's 2 zone valves. It's what we would call a twin zone or an S-plan, and we're going to go through with a Thermostat Kit 2 and we're going to do the upgrade. So let's get straight onto it. First thing I'll do is I'll move you in a little closer so that you can see the training board. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, and obviously we want to make sure that we're safe, so we'll isolate the system and I'll remove the fuse. So this is exactly what you would do on a normal system. Keep the fuse in my pocket. Now that we're safely isolated, the LP has gone dead, we can get in and we can fit the 2-channel hub. So loosen off the 2 screws underneath the LP and lift it off of its backplate, and there you can see the industry standard backplate. Now you get one of these in the kit anyway with Wiser, but obviously you don't need it because it's already there. I'll give you a bit of a close-up so you can see for an S-plan system we've got the neutral and live on the first 2 terminals, nothing on 1 and 2. Terminal 3 is your hot water on and terminal 4 is your central heating on. So at the moment, hot water on goes to the cylinder stat and then off to the valve, central heating on to the wired room stat and then to the valve. So we'll now get on and replace the hub. So no wiring changes here. Clip the 2-channel hub on, do up the 2 screws underneath to make sure it's all nice and secure. Now in terms of changing out the programmer, that's obviously all done, but we do need to address this wired room thermostat here. We need to make some changes to this so that it's not that the 2 aren't going to fight. So into the wiring center. Now, normally you may have to test for this. Luckily this is wired as per the drawing and as per the lid of the wiring center, but sometimes you will need to actually test to find the thermostat wires. But if we just have a look on the inside of the wiring center lid, we can see terminals 2 and 3 are where our room stat connects. So those we need to disconnect them, so that will take the room stat out of the equation. But we then need to make the circuit continuous, and we'll do that by wiring in a wire link across those 2 terminals. So it will go in just like that. Now before I start poking my fingers in there, I'm going to make sure that we are absolutely dead, which we are. So now I can go ahead and remove these 2 switch wires. Now normally you'd want to remove the whole assembly. You're not going to want that on the wall if you've got the new Wiser thermostat. So you would, this wire, which is also connected to neutral, you disconnect the whole lot and you would pull the whole thing away and get rid of it. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put these 2 switch wires into dead terminals. So terminal number 1 is not being used for anything, and the same with 16. So now the wired room thermostat has got no control over the system at all. If we were just to leave it like that, the signal that gets sent from the heating channel goes into the wiring center, but it won't get to the valve. And what we need this to fire the central heating valve. So that's where the link comes in. Pop the link across those 2 terminals. Like that. And that just completes the circuit. So now the output that comes from the central heating side, so pin number 4 on the back plate, that voltage goes into the wiring center and it will go through then and actually get to the valve. So that's the extent of the wiring you need to do if you've got an industry standard backplate and you've got a wired room thermostat. So covers back on. And we can now energize the system. And you'll see as soon as you turn the power on, the Wiser heat hub you get a flashing setup light. Wait for that to stabilize, and which it has now, so it's now solid green. So all of the actual labor, really, the hard work of changing out hardware, that's all done. It's all now down to the app. So what I'll do, I'll bring you back out here so you can see the screen, and we'll now go through on the app and have a look at what we need to do to get this to set up on the app. So as soon as you download the app, now you want to be doing this on your phone as well. So again, at no point have I got involved with the customer. I'm driving this installation. So you download the app onto your phone. You've got two buttons there. I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see what they say. Top one is set up, create an account, and the bottom one is already have an account. So the already have an account, that's aimed at when the customer's been through and they've registered and they want to give access to other people, or they want to re-log into their account. You would do that through the already have, and you put your details in there. We're not doing that. We are doing a complete setup. So we do setup, create an account. You're faced with these two options now, which is two variants of the heat hub. You've just fitted the top one, so you would pick the top one. Then the app asks you to press the setup button on the hub. So if we have a look at the hub again, you can see it's a solid green. It's a quick press to get the green light flashing. Now with the green light flashing, the hub is now broadcasting a network which we will connect to on our phone. So back to the app. Hit next. The app invites you to open your Wi-Fi settings. So it takes you into your settings page, into Wi-Fi, and as soon as the list populates, you can see there's two wireless networks. One is a home Wi-Fi here, and the other is 𝘁𝗱𝗲. So that 𝘁𝗱𝗲 network, the one that's 𝘁𝗱𝗲25, that is being broadcast by the hub. We need to connect to that. Now the last 6 digits that you see there, the 𝘁𝗱𝗲𝗄𝐵ED, that's the unique serial, the MAC address for the hub. So it's well worth making a note of that number against the address where you're installing it, because if you ever get any issues, you can contact our tech support, and provided you've given the system an internet connection, we can look at the back end. So it's well worth making a note of that, that 6-digit code that will be unique after 𝘁𝗱𝗲. You can see now it's stabilized, tells you there's no internet connection, and a lot of the time that will worry people, but we're not expecting an internet connection. We're connecting to a device to configure it. The phones are always predisposed to tell you that when there is no internet connection, but it's not an issue here. What you need is you want to make sure that it stabilizes. So you've got the tick there. It's quite happily connected to the hub. With that, back into the hub, back into the app, sorry, and you get to this screen here. Now let's set up your heating system. Now there's a key button here. You can see the big green next button at the bottom, but you see just above it, you've got a skip button. Now, the skip button is there so that once you've done your bit, the customer will do the last part of the journey. So they don't come in and try and do the bit you've done, they would hit skip. In the same way that once we've done the adding the devices, we'll skip the Wi-Fi stage. So it's really just managing about who owns the process. We're not going to go anywhere near the Wi-Fi. And when the customer gets to this stage, they can skip over the bit that we're just about to do. So we hit next, and this screen is really about what sort of system you're fitting it to. So your boiler type, default is standard, which means you're using the relay control. If you're going to use the 𝘁𝗱𝗱 module on the single channel, which you can do, you would go in there and you would change that to 𝘁𝗱𝗱, and then it would detect the 𝘁𝗱𝗱 connection. But we're using relay control, and the bottom where it says fuel type is gas. This is about how we modulate the relay. So gas is 6 cycles per hour. Your options are gas, oil, or electric. If you set it to oil, you'll get 3 cycles per hour, and if you set it to electric, it's 12. So it's just how you modulate your boiler based on the type of fuel that's burning. Everything's a bit slower with oil. Gas is the default. So once you've set that, you then get to this landing page. So we're fitting a thermostat kit today, so we've got a room thermostat. The principle is you will come back to this page for as many devices as you've got to set up, and this is what we'll see next week when we start adding more devices. We'll be back to this page many times, as we build up the system. But today we're just going to add the one room thermostat. So we pick room thermostat from the top, pop 2 AA batteries into the stat itself. You get the 𝘁𝗱𝗲 splash screen. The stat is immediately in join mode, and you can see within a couple of seconds, stat is now displaying a temperature, and the app is showing you that there's success, that it's successfully been added. So this device has been added to the network. What we now need to do is we need to assign it to one of the 16 zones that we talked about last week. So we hit next. It then asks us for a room name, so you can have a maximum of 16 in here. Let's assume that we're just going to put this back, say in the hallway, because it's going to do whole house zoning. We will just define a zone as hallway. Creates the zone, and then that device is assigned to it. And you see you're back then to this landing page where you're then ready to add any more devices. So let's assume that that's all we're adding today. You hit done. The app tells you looks like you've finished adding devices. You hit next, and you're faced with the now let's connect to your home Wi-Fi. But again, crucially, if you have a look at the bottom there, just above the green button, there is a skip button. So if we were to hit the next button, if we were to hit green, we'd be faced with a load of wireless networks that we could connect to. We don't want to get involved with that, so we hit skip, and it takes us through to the control screen. So here, this is exactly the same view that you would have if you've gone through and you've registered and done the whole registration and pairing, but we're just talking directly to the hub. The hub, you can see, is still flashing green. And if I briefly come out of the 𝘁𝗱𝗲 app and go into our settings page, you can see I'm connected to the 𝘁𝗱𝗲 network there. So I'm connected, so all the commands that are being sent directly from the phone to the hub. We haven't gone near any wireless networks or any account registration. So let's go back into the app. Now what you can see from here, if I can get this in frame, the top pane there, that would normally show you where your location is, but because we haven't registered this, the system doesn't know where it is. It's not getting any cloud feed for the weather data, so there's no issue the fact that it's not displaying any temperature there. If we click on the zone itself, there's your main control screen where you can control the boost. You can swing the carousel at the bottom if you want to change the set point, and as default, you've always got a schedule running. So if all you do is add a device, this is the schedule, and I'll just zoom in a bit on that. This is the standard schedule that will run if all you do is add a device. So you can see that without going near any other infrastructure, we've added this device. We can set a schedule. It will quite happily run without having to go anywhere near Wi-Fi or getting involved with registration. That really is something that needs to be owned by the customer. And what I'll do is in a future videos, I'll show you at what point you get to where you then would hand it over to the customer. So if we're at that stage now, we've added all the devices, we would now then hand it over to the customer, get them to download the app and go through the registration process. But you can see you've got all the control that you would have if you've done cloud services, except remote access. You'll only have access to this as long as you're in range of the hub. As soon as you move away, it will drop, and that's something to remember. If you walk out to the van with your phone or something, it's quite likely that you will drop the wireless network. When you come back in, there's nothing to tell it to automatically pick back up. So just make sure that the green light is flashing on the hub, and if it stopped flashing, you don't lose anything. You just press it again to start it broadcasting, go back into your Wi-Fi settings, and pick it up again. So you see, it couldn't be easier to do the full setup. That's just a thermostat kit. Obviously, it will take longer the more devices we have, and next week's video we'll be looking at how we add more devices. So we'll be looking at doing TRV, the smart TRVs, and the 𝘁𝗱𝗲𝗄 and all the features and things associated with that. So that's really it for today's brief demo. Let me pop you back over here, and if you've got any questions, then now's the time to pop them through. The only thing I would say is the principle we went through there, which is linking out the thermostat, that's exactly the same whether you do it with a single channel, a 2-channel, or the 3-channel. 3-channel, the only thing is you do it twice, because you're going to have you've got 2 relays for central heating. Those feed 2 separate room thermostats, so you would have to do that linking out process twice. But that is essentially it in a nutshell, how you would upgrade a standard 2-channel S-plan system or twin zone system to /WISER when it's already got an industry standard backplate. Now, that's it done. As an installer, I'm now ready to leave, hand it over to the customer, or if there is a customer, if it's a new build, say, I can now just leave. It will quite happily run following that schedule. Thing to remember, just hit the setup button before you go, and that will then stop it broadcasting. So just as a security measure, just make sure you hit the setup button so then somebody can't come and get into it that way. Thanks for watching. Like I say, next week is going to be looking more at the devices. If you want to get a bit of a heads up, have a look at the 9 Degree Network website. I always say make sure you're registered, so you get the updates from Claire and you get the access to the resources. But you can certainly get onto the Drayton Academy. There's some videos there. So if you want to sort of get a bit of ahead of the game on next week, you're more than welcome to go there. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you